attend, giving up your time this evening. I really appreciate it, so that way you can stay informed about what is happening in your community. This is my fourth year conducting these town hall meetings, and I have to say one of the best things that has occurred from starting these is that now I actually have citizens reaching out to me saying, hey, in your next town hall, can you bring in a speaker to talk about this? Or, hey, can I come to your next town hall meeting because I want to talk about the organization that I'm involved in. And that's really what this is about. The opportunity to be able to share information with the community so that you are educated on either what is available to you, organizations you can get involved with, or issues that we are facing. Just a couple of things I want to share with you before we start our program. This morning I attended the Tri-County City Soil Water Conservation District local government breakfast, and our own Lewis Ashton is the chairman this year, and Janet Harris is the vice chairman. So I was really thrilled to see King George so well represented. And they shared with me some very interesting statistics that I wanted to share with you. Out of 95 counties in the state of Virginia, King George ranks 17th for vegetable production. And of the 3 counties that comprise the Tri-County Soil Water Conservation District, King George provides 95% of the vegetable production. In 2012, agriculture revenues from the 3 counties provided $16,451,000 in cash receipts. That's huge. That's huge. And that means the bulk of that came from us. That's great. Go farmers. This afternoon, for lunch, I attended the Northern Neck Artisan Trail Lunch and Learn. Jane Van Balsa is part of the management board representing King George County. She is very involved with the implementation process. To fully get the trail off the ground is going to be about a 9 to 12 month process. If you would be interested in being involved, you don't necessarily have to be one of the artisans on the trail. You're just a citizen who wants to be involved and help support this endeavor. You just contact Jane Van Balsa. She would love to have your participation. Part of this beginning process is we need to name the trail. And this is where the fun begins, because we want all citizens in the Northern Neck to be involved in helping to name the trail. So put on your thinking caps, and hopefully you can attend the naming meeting, which will be held April 28th at 5:30 p.m., location to be determined. So if you follow my Facebook page or you receive my newsletter, you will receive the information. So both of these items bring me to the topic of tourism, which has been quite a bit of focus as of late. Tourism is economic development, and currently it is an untapped source of tax revenue for this county. Tourism is truly the best form of economic development for a community that wishes to retain its rural character. Tourism would allow us to showcase our historically rich venues, our outdoor recreation, our agricultural way of life, and our talented artisans. Developing tourism as part of an economic development strategic plan would allow us to fund needed services while continuing to keep our taxes low. State law allows for a portion of the revenue collected from the hotel excise tax to be put into the general fund to pay for those services. The other portion, according to state law, must specifically be spent to increase tourism. King George currently assesses the maximum tax allowed to the hotels and bed and breakfast inns in our locality. And here's an interesting factoid for you. 483 million is the number of people each year who spend money to attend a major sporting event or a theme park. But compare that to the 850 million people who choose to spend money to travel to visit a specific museum in the United States. And we have 3 museums in King George County. We have opportunity that we are not tapping into. Supervisors are winding down the budget talks for this year, and last night was our final work session. Supervisors who attended the meeting came to consensus that we would advertise a 2-cent increase in the real estate tax. This does not mean that that increase will actually occur. It simply means that it will be advertised. Once a tax rate is advertised, the supervisors cannot go any higher than that, but we can certainly vote to go lower than what was advertised. A citizen did email me in advance of the meeting with a question, wanting me to come prepared to discuss the fire rescue request for positions. So Chief Moody requested 6 new positions at a total cost of $463,905. 1 cent on the real estate tax rate equates to $250,000 in tax revenue. This means to fund the positions for the entire fiscal year beginning July 1st would require a 2-cent tax increase. Should the positions not begin until January of 2016, then the cost would only be $231,953 and would only require roughly a 1-cent tax increase. In addition to the 6 positions that Chief Moody requested, Mr. Grzika and Mr. Sisson added a 7th position. Their request was for a volunteer recruiter at a cost of $78,260. So that would be in addition to those other 6 positions. Reality is, Dahlgren Fire Station is still only manned by 2 paid personnel per shift. And that does not meet the federal standards for taking out a fire truck. I personally took an interest this past week when 2 EMS calls came in from my own subdivision. So since I was home, curiosity got the better of me, and I wanted to see who responded and how long it took. As a supervisor, I received messages as a text on my phone letting me know what the call is and what the address is. So I took my dog, and at 9:30 in the morning on a weekday, we walked around to the address, and it was 15 minutes, and Company 1 showed up. But I pretty much figured that was what was going to happen because just prior to that, a previous EMS call had come into the Dahlgren station. So with only 2 already out on the ambulance responding to that call, there would have been no one else left at the station to come to my subdivision, which is only 3 miles from the Dahlgren station. The next call came in the evening, just down the street from me, same night as the fire over on Stephen Lane. Knowing that that call had come in and was taking place, I figured probably everybody's at the fire. So who's going to come and how long is it going to take? Well, I didn't walk down far enough to actually read who it was that responded, but it took them 16 minutes to get there. So those are all called delayed responses because you should have someone there within 8 minutes or less. And especially if it is a cardiac patient or a stroke patient, because we have unfortunately in the past had a stroke victim pass away up in Matthias Point because there was no one to respond from King George County. They had to wait for mutual aid to arrive from Charles County. So staffing our fire rescue stations is critical if when you dial 911, you want someone to respond. We do have volunteers. I believe there's 42 active volunteers. The volunteers are there when they're available to be there, but they work day jobs, they have families, and many of them actually run dedicated shifts. And I've done ride-alongs with them on a Monday night or a Friday night. But again, when you only have 2 assigned to a shift at a station, and federal standards mandate that you have 4 to take out that fire truck, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So this evening, I'm really pleased to announce that Sheriff Dempsey was able to be here. A lot of people have heard me talk about wanting to restrict the number of cigarette outlets within a certain radius, and they don't understand why I would have an interest in creating an ordinance that would do so. And so I asked the sheriff if he could come here tonight to better explain to citizens why there's a concern with so many cigarette outlets being located densely together here in the Dahlgren district.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Ms. Brabo, for having me here. It's always good and a pleasure to be and have an opportunity to speak and to let you know just a couple things that's happening in King George, and certainly cigarette smuggling is one of those things. So Jim Vance is going to tell you a little bit about it, and then following Jim Vance, I'll fill in some of the gaps. So I'd like to show you a video right off at the beginning, so you'll get probably a good understanding of what we'll be talking about here tonight. So.
Tonight, News 4 I-Team goes undercover inside the world of cigarette smuggling. It is a crime so profitable that many drug dealers are now turning to that. You might think it doesn't affect you, but you'd be wrong with that. The I-Team's Scott McFarland went on the tobacco trail to show how agents are working to stop smugglers.
It's a crime that happens in plain sight, low risk, high payoff.
That's more profitable than heroin.
Smuggled cigarettes sold inside stores up and down the East Coast.
We know they came from Virginia.
The News 4 I-Team taking you undercover inside a black market on the rise and originating right here in our area, and it costs taxpayers millions.
You guys enroll?
Paul Carey is at the center of the battle against cigarette smuggling.
Got him pulled over in his neighborhood.
He's chief of enforcement with the Northern Virginia Cigarette Tax Board. Now, this morning in a quiet Fairfax neighborhood, our cameras rolling during a takedown. Months in the making.
We see him load the product up from his home. $300,000 worth of product he sent out.
24 separate shipments of Virginia cigarettes sent overseas where they're sold for a premium. Agents find 549 more cartons in this man's van, even more inside his home, charging him with a felony.
But this is one of the first cases where we've worked where it's being shipped out of the United States.
Until now, Carey says, most of the cigarettes ended up at mom and pop shops in other states. Virginia's low cigarette tax, 30 cents per pack, enticing smugglers with big profits by selling to stores in cities with much higher rates, like D.C. and New York. The News 4 I-Team easily found D.C. retailers selling cigarettes with Virginia tax stamps, meaning they weren't paying D.C.'s tax.
It impacts everyone who lives in a district.
Bedell Terry with D.C.'s Office of Tax and Revenue sends inspectors out each week, almost always finding violators. The number of confiscated cigarettes increasing from 335 packs in 2011 to more than 3,600 in 2012.
We seize them, and the fine is 500 times the retail value, or $5,000, whatever is larger.
Another trapdoor.
Some D.C. retailers doing whatever it takes to hide the contraband in hidden compartments or shelves to avoid fines. The News 4 I-Team found the problem is even worse further up the I-95 corridor in New York City, where an estimated 60% of sales involve smuggled cigarettes. We were able to buy cigarettes from Virginia around the city, from Brooklyn to the Bronx.
About 48, 49% of the stores in New York City are selling inappropriately tacked cigarettes.
New York City Sheriff Edgar Dominique has spent the last 2 years cracking down on smuggling, now so profitable it's attracting organized criminals and even terrorist groups.
This here is our evidence room where we've taken in our contraband. This constitutes about 6 months of retail inspection.
His office so far issuing more than $1.5 million in fines.
A lot of our cigarettes presently that we're seizing have a Virginia tax stamp on them.
He's hoping new legislation will give his department authority to go even further, actually closing down repeat offenders for up to 60 days.
We're going to take away the money that you're making.
To cut off this tobacco trail before the smuggling even begins.
That Fairfax man found guilty of transporting untaxed cigarettes heads to court next month to still face a felony charge for intent to distribute. Our investigation on the tobacco trail continues tomorrow at 6, showing why some say new laws might actually be contributing to the black market. Scott McFarland, News 4 I-Team.
If you have something the News 4 I-Team should look into, we invite you to call the tip line. The number is 202-885.
Thank you so much. I hope that explains a little bit before we get into this discussion. But certainly, historically speaking, law enforcement has always been challenged with smuggling something. You know, back in the days of Prohibition, it was alcohol. Some of you probably remember the moonshine days, the moonshine runners. And then gun smuggling was a big thing. They were back and forth. And we fought them, we challenged the war of smuggling of drugs in 95 corridor, 301 corridor. You know, we were all on the lookout and trained and prepared, you know, for the smuggling of drugs. And of course now, the new challenge, which is not really that new, but deal with some time, but but I guess new to the public is we've been dealing also now challenging the smuggling of cigarettes. And certainly the illegal tobacco trade, smuggling contraband is a, it's very broad as to where it goes and the money that it finances. It's very profitable and very lucrative business. But quite often the larger scale smuggling operations we have found, and certainly defined as financing terrorist organizations, and certainly organized crime, certainly in the state of New York, which is one of the larger ones we concern ourselves with. But there's two certain types of smuggling operations and smuggling things that take place. One is you have the small smuggler. He comes down in his car, he hits all the cigarette stores on 301, going down, it's all coming back, and he can buy 5 packs at each store, and it's called smuggling. And what he does, he loads up 24 cartons of cigarettes, which is legal to possess in the state of Virginia. And of course, he carries that back to New York, and he can easily hit a parking lot in New York or pop a spot that they would know prior to him because he lives in New York. He's going to pop his trunk, and he's going to sell 24 cartons of cigarettes, and he's going to profit, a great deal in just about an hour's worth of work and 6 hours of driving. And then you have the larger retail deals in New York that actually they come down in vans and they'll load up, a whole van. And they can care less whether it's under 25 now because they know they're good, under cover of hours and darkness and a pre-planned location. And they'll smuggle, hundreds of cartons of cigarettes right back up a 301 into New York, and they'll sell them to retail dealers, learning at a lucrative price and lucrative profit. And then you have the larger, even stepping into the larger organizations. King George Sheriff's Office, we have, and I personally have been involved in 2 very large cigarette smuggling investigations. They're past, they've been on the news, so there's nothing confidential about it. But New York State Police, New York Police Department, Joint Terrorism Task Force, ATF, we all come together, King George Sheriff's Office, and we started a large-scale operation. Within a year, we seized several $1 million and several $1 million of cigarettes as well, and made about 30 arrests in those 2 investigations. With those 30 arrests, they were all, none were citizens of the United States. They were all Middle Easterners, and all money was certainly going across the ocean. In fact, I remember the one evening we made the arrest, and we brought the people that we had arrested back to the sheriff's office, and we had a Hebrew interpreter there because they didn't speak English. But I can remember one of the first ones that was searched, he pulled out a ticket where he was, the day before the Twin Towers in New York City, he had been there and visited and been on the tour of the Twin Towers. The day before the plane hit it. And so the smuggling operation, it's from large, it's from small to extremely large. So, as law enforcement, we really never know who and what we're dealing with. So, certainly the Virginia, one of the reasons that certainly we have a problem here in King George and why we're such a targeted county in the Commonwealth, King George is one of the leading counties that does export cigarettes. Frederick County, Virginia, which is up near the northern border of Pennsylvania, and we're here with watering the state of Maryland. And of course, it's all about low tax and the cost of cigarettes. I have a map here that certainly shows the tax in each state. So just to give you an example, Virginia is the second lowest tax. Missouri is 17 cents a pack. Virginia is 30 cents a pack. And then you jump in Louisiana as the next lowest tax would be 36. But when you look at what's around us, is West Virginia is 55 cents a tax. Maryland is $2 a tax. D.C. is $2.50. North Carolina comes south. I think North Carolina is 45 cents. South Carolina is 57 cents. But then you go all the way to New York, $4.35 a pack. So carton of cigarettes in Virginia is $40 here in King George County, 40 to 45 a carton. But when you get to New York, that same carton will cost you $130. So a pack of cigarettes here is $4 a pack. In New York, it's $13 a pack. So you can see the difference in why people drive. And certainly that is being monitored. Now, a couple things, the difficulties, a lot of difficulties in working these cases, identifying these cases, in making the case as prosecuted in court. But however, I will tell you that Altria, which is a Philip Morris company that oversees the quality of cigarettes as well as the distribution and the smuggling problems that we have. And J.R. Reynolds, they cover the other brand cigarettes other than Philip Morris. And we've had a number of meetings within the state, and I've attended all those meetings because of where we have proximity and where we're located and volume of cigarettes that leave King George. Those companies monitor the volumes that they sell to the retailers. The difficulty is no one knows how much the retailer is selling and distributing. So if a retailer takes in, 100 cartons, we don't know what he dumped in 100 cartons. No way of knowing. And I just use it as a small number. We don't know if he sold 100 cartons or whether he sold one carton and put it out the back door, 99 cartons. There's no way of tracking that through the system. The legislature, they're dealing with that, they're working with that, and they have looked at licensing and controlling of that, of the tobacco products, just like they do alcohol. And ABC would be certainly the enforcement agency with that. The other thing that is being certainly looked at and reported and trying to track as much as we can is counterfeit cigarettes. The counterfeit cigarettes, I've looked at them both. You cannot see the difference. A laboratory is the only one that can take the cigarette apart and determine whether it's counterfeit or not. But however, if you're a smoker and you take the chance of smoking a counterfeit cigarette, you're putting your health at risk because what's in that cigarette, the contents of that is not nice. And it's counterfeit, it's produced in China, and it's a very unhealthy product that being put into cigarettes. So certainly, with that, that's a challenge for Altria and J.R. Reynolds as they monitor that. But certainly that is a major issue. Daily people are certainly coming to King George, and specifically to purchase cigarettes. I mean, that's their sole purpose, to come in across the bridge in King George to purchase cigarettes. We have made a lot of arrests, and they're just small arrests, because if our officer sees the car at Wawa and sees them at each tobacco store and in the sheets and headed back across the bridge, that's probably cause them to make a stop. They make a stop, they ask for a consent search, and if they search the vehicle, they'll find a trunk load, a backseat load of cigarettes. And we made several of those arrests. Probably within the last 6 months, we probably made about 4 arrests with possession. So in Virginia, Virginia Code says any person other than an authorized holder who possesses with intent to distribute more than 5,000 packs or 25 cartons, but fewer than 100,500 cartons packs of base cigarettes is guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. And a second offense is a Class 6 felony. So we certainly have worked very hard at trying to track and maintain. I certainly apologize for not being able to give you any specific numbers or volumes. We work very closely with our fellow law enforcement agencies, which there is a task force working out of the Attorney General's office, and certainly we just not at liberty to share a lot of information about the actual body. But certainly, be assured, I have those figures, and we work with those figures and work with those agencies, and we're doing a lot in that area to bring somewhat of a problem to a resolution. I'll open up the question in just a minute, but also Brabo asked me to bring you aware of some of the drug arrests that we've had in the last week. We certainly we have a task force that's made up of Virginia State Police, FBI, NCIS agents, Westmoreland County Sheriff's Office, Caroline Sheriff's Office, and King George Sheriff's Office. And they work out of King George Sheriff's Office, which is a nice facility that we can host and have them working out of our office. But we work as a region, and we cover the entire territory. I think if you notice, we published and we released 4 major arrests that we made last week as a result of a year-long investigation in King George. Caroline made certainly a report of about 13 arrests that they've made, and it's never ending. The task force never stops. Those cases are very intense. They require a lot of money, a lot of personnel. drug deal, they don't even get reported. But it happens quite frequently. So along with the drug sales, drug activity, we see the violence and the gang activity, which is certainly growing. One question that he was sent out was, what do you see? What can you report to us? And it's really nothing changed in that regard. That if you see a specific location, an apartment, townhouse, a home, that there's a lot of this revolving door of traffic coming and going, and the times of that traffic, please give us a call and give us an opportunity to take a look at that particular residence and to see what's happening there. So, with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Sheriff, has there been any movement in Richmond as far as the House of Delegates or the Senate possibly raising the tax on that? It seemed like it'd be a simple thing to do.
And it's been discussed, but it's quickly, the conversation ends very quickly. And I have never had a good face-to-face conversation with someone to tell me why. Again, here we are, the revenue's the problem, and yet with 30 cents a pack, neighboring states, $2, 2.50 cents, 55 cents, 45 cents.
Are we the home of Philip Morris?
What's that?
Is Virginia the home of Philip Morris?
It is.
Big pockets, lots of lobbyists in Richmond, and you wonder why?
Well, I hear the same thing you're hearing.
Yeah,
But, to me, that's not a good answer.
I serve on the Finance Committee for the Virginia Association of Counties down at the state level, and so we had Senator Ware, the chairman of the Finance Committee for the General Assembly, at our last meeting to discuss either raising the cigarette tax or allowing counties the ability to tax. There's a few counties that are allowed, and cities are allowed, and towns are allowed, but the majority of counties by state law are not allowed to impose a cigarette tax. And his response to us was, there's no appetite for that. So we didn't get a reason either, other than there's no appetite for that.
There's a difference in the counties that are allowed to and the others aren't. How can they?
Coons wanted to know basically what's the difference, why are some counties allowed and some aren't. It really comes down to their representative advocated and introduced legislation to allow those counties. Virginia is a Dillon rule state, which means we can only do what state law says we can do. And so it does not say King George County. It's not one of the counties that's listed, so therefore we cannot. Any more questions for the sheriff?
Sheriff Dempsey, when you make an arrest, are you allowed to keep the assets from the arrest like they do with drugs?
Well, the asset, the seizure, we can take asset, if we can prove that the asset was purchased with drugs, and the sale of drug money. But that's the only way.
Only if they use it in the act of smuggling.
To transport, to move, to sell from. But, the asset seizure law is really, it's really changed. And with the third party, second party, the myth of, if you borrow my car tonight and take it and sell drugs, I could lose my car. Everybody's heard that, right? That can't happen. For me to seize a car, you've got to do the drug deal, you got to get sole owner of the car and own it completely. You can't even have a lien on it. So if you find a car, drug dealers got smart. They don't drive their own cars. They drive somebody else's car. So I'd rather they'll seize the car.
Steve, are the local retailers working closely with you?
They're not. As far as cigarette
As far
sales,
as cigarettes?
they're not.
Not.
They're not. We don't work with them at all.
You can't pressure them at all?
We have fulfilled the responsibility of giving them notice. And we have to do that by code. But we have gone, I'll tell you, an ATF agent has been to every cigarette store in King George County and given them notice.
That's it.
Yeah. But just so you, a lot of the owners of the cigarette stores in King George, they own cigarette stores all over Virginia. Chesterfield is a big county that seems to produce a lot of cigarette stores there as well. And most of the people that own stores here in King George also own stores in Chesterfield. They found out King George is just a popular spot because it's so proximity of people come across the bridge and make a purchase and get
to the store if you find that they sold 50 cartons or something? What is, do they get any
That's a
consequences?
tax violation, that's all they had. And taxation agent, or the IRS agent, they have to be actively involved, and it has to reach, believe it or not, it has to reach a certain threshold before they even last the phone.
So probably the stores can't hear you. Oh. Probably the stores get in more trouble for selling to minors than they do for selling to smugglers,
Again, it's no violation other than tax violation.
which is interesting. Yeah, and wrong.
But now, I will tell you, the legislature's working on that this year, because if it goes under, it comes out at ABC, and there is, just same as alcohol, if you licensed to sell, then they lose their license to sell. That would be a violation.
Can I just ask for clarification? Did I understand you correctly when you arrested those 30 people or whatever? You stated they were all from overseas?
That's correct.
They were all from the Middle East, and all of that revenue was going overseas?
Absolutely.
That's frightening people.
Just as an example, I'll tell you, in 6 months, one individual could profit as much as $1 million, go back both to his homeland and track and trace for them.
Sheriff Dempsey, I know you said that majority of the owners come out of the Chesterfield County area. How can the private citizens get a listing of all the business owners that own tobacco stores here in King George County?
Yep. That'll be a question for the Commissioner of
Pardon?
She happens to be here tonight.
Yes, I do. Yes, contact our office.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear who you were.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the Commissioner of Revenue, Joanne Ando.
Okay.
For King George County. So contact our office. I'll give you one of my business cards.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so if we can, we're going to move to the next presentation, and the sheriff's going to stick around so he can answer more questions.